So my mum asks me, "Bad country, why did you split up with your girlfriend? She was perfect for you." And I said, "Well, do you want to be in a relationship with a chronic alcoholic who is depressive and melancholic all the time, pisses the bed and complains about everything?" And my mum says, "Well, no, not really." And I said, "Well, neither did she." That is, of course, not true. My mother doesn't call me bad country. What is this one for? What is not plugged in? Today I'm ranking the alcohol I drank by how much it fucked up my life. And we'll be going from least worst to worst worst. That makes sense? Who cares? Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bad Country. Okay, so let's get started. Let's just have some fun. Now, I'm going to be ranking all of the drinks which I drank to excess, right? That doesn't cover every single drink in the world. But if it's not on this list, there's a good chance I have tried it. It just didn't fuck my life up in any kind of measurable way. If you think something is missing, right? If there's something that should be, that you would expect to be on this list, or if there's something that really screwed your life up that I haven't mentioned, leave it in the comments. Otherwise, let's just get started. First one is Soju. Soju is a South Korean drink. It's not particularly strong by like liquor standards, but it creeps up on you. And this one didn't fuck my entire life up, but it did come close to fucking up a relationship that I had while I was in South Korea. So I love Soju, and of every single thing that I've given up and all of the sacrifices that I've made in sobriety, when someone asks me if there is a drink that I miss, a little bit of me, if I'm being very honest, does miss sitting on a beach in South Korea with a bottle of soju. Better yet, the real example I'm about to give, walking around the sex museum in Jeju. There are 3 of them. There's a big sex theme park there, and me and the girl that I was with at the time, my long-term girlfriend back then, went there and got absolutely steaming on soju and had one of the craziest days of my entire life. It was extremely fun. But the fun fell off pretty quickly because soju, you don't really notice yourself getting hammered until you're hammered. It's a sneaky one because it doesn't feel incredibly strong, but it is potent enough to make you say and do stupid things before you recognize you're doing it. And in this particular case, we ended up having a blazing row at the sex theme park in Jeju. So that's Soju. Ruined a holiday and was the beginning of the end of that relationship, thanks to Soju. Next up is Mezcal. I've only had Mezcal a couple of times with a Mexican friend of mine, and he had the little boot that you drink it out of and all of that stuff. The reason why that came close to ruining my life, or the reason why it makes the list, is because that drink introduced me to all of his Mexican friends. And I ended up at a Mexican wedding where I took a huge amount of mezcal and beer and hallucinogenics and had one of the worst experiences of my entire life. So that's mezcal. Next up, brandy. So, a little later on this list, I'm going to talk about a drink that we all used to drink when we were young, and brandy was a component in it. It was one of the major components. So when I was starting out on my alcoholic career, we used to make big bottles. I'm going to talk about it separately, but we used to call them Special Brew, and we would steal brandy from all of our cupboards, all of our parents' cupboards, and make a huge kind of disgusting hobo cocktail out of all of it. And because brandy was such a powerful component of that, and because that was where I learned to do my drinking, brandy is a contributing factor to my later alcoholism. It's just so sugary and horrible and gives you such a terrible hangover if you drink it in any quantity. And to be using it like a mixer when you're like 16 years old, everything that came afterwards was partially due to brandy, because it's cheap and it's available. So that's brandy. Next up, liqueurs like Jägermeister and Cointreau. So the reason why these make the list, the reason why they screwed up my life to some degree, is because I was when I was first caught drunk as a young man, as an adolescent, it was actually Cointreau. When I was first seriously, problematically drunk, I was babysitting with this girl. She was the babysitter, I was her kind of boyfriend, by which I mean we were just using other people's houses to have sex in. And we found a bottle of Cointreau in this person's house, and I drank the entire thing, not knowing what it was. And I was violently ill for a long time. So that one was particularly bad. It also, the reason it's on the list is because it revealed an unhealthy relationship, one with alcohol, and two with alcohol and sex and recklessness and making stupid decisions. But God, I only ever drank Cointreau that once. I can never ever do it again afterwards. Jägermeister, on the other hand, is fucking foul. I don't know why anybody drinks it, but in Germany, it's so ubiquitously available. You can buy it on the counter in little bottles for €1. When I was at the worst of my alcoholism, I would go to the shop and I would get a litre bottle of vodka, and then I would buy a couple of those Jägermeisters from the counter for the walk home. So that awful. So those are liqueurs. Beyond that, I don't have a huge amount of experience, which is why they're low on the list of alcoholic drinks that ruined my life. Next up, absinthe. So absinthe didn't fuck up my life like the simpler, like more common drinks, but a little bit like quite a lot of people, especially kind of alcoholics. There is a perception that absinthe is kind of cool and bohemian and creative and artistic. And I fell into that bullshit as well. It is just a powerful liquor, like everything else. But I also believed for a while that if I drank absinthe, I would be very creative and that I could write my masterpiece. But no. Nah. But we're getting on to the real stuff that actually started to have real consequences on my life now. Incidentally, if you're enjoying this kind of content, please do like and subscribe, especially subscribe. If you really like it, head over to patreon.com/BatCountrySober, or check out a very full-featured sobriety app called betterwithoutbooze.me. All of the links are in the description. Let's get back to it. So what's next? We have... Moonshine. Okay, let me talk about two different kinds of moonshine, right? First is the special brew that I mentioned a moment ago. So this is the one that really did the damage. A special brew was... What we would do, or what I would do, was I would take a 2-litre bottle of like Fanta, some horrible sugary drink, and drink half of it or pour it away, so there was half of the bottle left. And then I would take small bits of whatever was in my parents' drinks cabinet and build out this kind of mix. Look, when you're like 15 and you're wandering the streets and stuff, you should not be drinking a cocktail of every single powerful liquor and spirit in the cupboard. And I was drinking that stuff. So that's like a litre of strong liquor and then a litre of mixer. So a big 2-litre bottle. And we used to drink them real fast as well. And they would get me blind drunk, like falling down, throwing up, pissing all over the place, waking up in strange places. I once woke up in a canoe in the basement of a church with no recollection of how I got there, but that was a special brew night, I think. It's just poison. And that really defined my relationship with alcohol forever. So that's the reason that kind of moonshine had such a consequence on my later drinking, is because it demonstrated early that I didn't care what it was. I just wanted that effect. It's not really moonshine, of course. The second thing I'm going to talk about, which also didn't ruin my life as such, but it's kind of interesting to talk about, I suppose. So I was in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan once in this hotel room, and my hotel room had a balcony, and there was Russian voices on the balcony next to mine, and I'd been drinking a little bit, so I was kind of in a friendly mood, and so were these two big burly Russians. And it turns out they were in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan to try to find a buyer for this alcohol concoction that they'd invented, that they were calling in English Moonshine, said it on the bottle, this poorly printed bottle. And they invited, because they were drunk as well, they invited me over to their hotel room. And things got out of hand really quickly. They gave me quite a lot of this moonshine to test. And by the end of the night, the last thing I remember is that we got into a fight, me and these two Russian guys, like an actual fist fight, a punch-up, over gay rights. And the only memory I have is that the guy was trying to wrestle me, and I'm like a stand-up fighter, so I'm throwing punches, and he got me to the ground, and I'm just dropping elbows right on the top of his head. And that's all I remember. And when I woke up in the morning, I opened my hotel room with this god-awful hangover, and there was a bottle of moonshine and a little shot glass that they had left as a gift and an apology. So yeah, it didn't ruin my life, but it certainly had the potential. Next, beer. Okay, so I was never really like a bitter drinker or a Guinness guy or anything like that. I was a lager drinker. And in the grand scheme of things, considering how my alcoholism went later, beer didn't ruin my life as such. It was just always a passenger. It was always there. And while it rarely led to anything particularly destructive, especially compared to what came afterwards, it was always there. It was a subtle one. And as a result, it kind of was partially responsible for what came afterwards, which is why it's relatively high up this list. Next up, weird one, Pernod. So Pernod had a worse effect on my life than beer did, even though I drank Pernod for a much shorter period of time. So let me explain, because this is a very unusual one. I wonder if anybody is familiar with this. So when I was starting to go to pubs around like 16, 17, there was this urban myth that once you drank it, it would crystallize in your stomach, and the next day you could drink water, rehydrate the Pernod crystals in your stomach, and you get drunk again. And there was like rumours about, there was a guy that I know who was drunk on Pernod for 24 years and all of this stuff. And the way that we interpreted that when we were young, because we're fucking stupid, was cheap night out, cheap weekend. Drink once, drunk twice. So I used to get a pint of lager from the bar and a shot of Pernod. And I would take a swig of the lager, pour the Pernod in the beer, and then drink it, thinking that the next day I wouldn't have to spend any money. I could just drink water and be hammered again. I can't believe it took me so long to realise I was an alcoholic. I didn't call myself an alcoholic until 20 years after this. I should have known then. That's included higher than beer, because although I drank tons more beer than Pernod, the Pernod was really a big clue early on that my relationship with alcohol was fucked. Okay, next. Wine. Wine? Why is it always wine? What you want on your cornflakes, darling? I'll have some wine, please. Red Dwarf reference, I think. Anyway, yeah, so wine, when I wanted to get fancy drunk. Wine was usually, when I was in a relationship, right, with what was essentially just a drinking partner, it was different from when I was drinking alone. So when I'm drinking alone, I will be drinking a litre of vodka in the bed on my own. But when you're in a relationship, you can't do that. So my girlfriend, drinking partner, at the time, we would drink box wine. We would go out and get like 5-litre boxes of wine and get smashed. So I was never a fancy wine alcoholic. I was a dirty box wine alcoholic. And any time I had to pretend that I knew what wine was about, I would if I was in with work colleagues and I didn't want them to know how heavily I drank, I would ask for a Sauvignon Blanc, and then I would whisper to the barman, the cheapest one, because that's what really mattered. The most alcohol for the least money. Ooh, interesting next one. This is Wolfberry wine, okay, or Goji. Goji, which is like a wolfberry is a real thing. It's like a little, looks a bit like a cherry tomato, but longer. It's a bit like a lychee. And this Goji is a Chinese Chinese liquor made from wolfberries. Wolfberry wine was, for me, really the beginning of my major downfall. I'm not sure if this exists outside of China. If you're familiar with it and you've never been to China, leave it in the comments. Tell me where it is available. I've never looked into it really, but it was cheaper than vodka because it was made in China, so they didn't import it, which meant that it was half the price of the liquors that I would usually want. But also, it was really nice, very sugary again, very sweet, but it was like you wouldn't know it was 40% by drinking it. It was really sweet and it tasted like a fruit juice, like a Ribena or something, rather than a really strong liquor, even though it was really strong. And it was sticky. And I used to walk around with that in my bag, a bottle of Wolfberry wine, because it looked, when I was drinking it on the street, which is my MO, was to walk around the street in the towns and just wander while getting absolutely hammered. It looked a little bit less trashy than drinking straight from a bottle of vodka on the street. The Wolfberry wine looked a little bit classier, I suppose. But I did that so much that I became not just an alcoholic, but dependent on Wolfberry wine. I've never mentioned it on the channel before. I don't know why not, really. But Wolfberry wine was a major part of my drinking before I came back from Asia. I loved that stuff, and it fucking broke me in half. Like, it was very, very bad behavior. It got me in a lot of trouble. And anytime I was, like, making bad decisions, particularly with local women, it usually involved Wolfberry wine. That's how it ruined my life. Next up, I wonder if anybody is familiar with this anymore. Snakebite and Black. So a little bit like the Pernod thing I mentioned, Snakebite and Black was briefly popular. There's a thing called Snakebite, which is lager and cider mixed, and then Snakebite and Black is that with a little bit of blackcurrant juice. Whether it is stronger as a result of the combination of those two things, or three things, I'm not sure. But we drank it at such intense volumes, or I keep saying I drank it at such intense volumes that it was really my go-to drink when I was in my formative drinking years, like between 15 and, I don't know, 22 or something. I was drinking it all the time, and then it disappeared from my life. We all thought it was cool and fashionable, and it was fucking foul. Snakebite and Black drove me to many a police cell in my teenage years. Okay, we're into the last five now. Gin. It's a bleak day. If I've chosen gin instead of vodka or whiskey, it's going to be a bad day. Gin is poison. Tastes like pond water. Tastes like alcoholic pond water. And I hate that there are gin snobs, and that I was nearly one for a time. Like, I went through a phase when I was living in London of being this kind of, oh Christ, I hate it. Like, you know, just like dressing egregiously smart in little waistcoats and ties with like a gold tie clip, and listening to electro swing and thinking I was fucking cool. And gin was a big part of that culture. This kind of like this. There was like a minor swing revival. I'm not putting this on the internet. Shut up. This is of all the embarrassing shit that I've said, this is the most embarrassing. Was this like 2-year period of my life? Anyway, gin and tonic was my go-to drink for a little while in my late 20s. The reason why gin ruined my life is because it made me think I was cool and sophisticated, when really I was a fucking thug, and I wanted to pound pure alcohol by the litre. Gross, awful. So yeah, gin wrecked me. Not as bad as the next one though, which is Baijiu, which is another Chinese liquor, which can be bought quite commonly for the equivalent of about $2 for a litre, and is quite often more than 70% in strength. It tastes like diesel. And the Chinese have this like a idiom about Baijiu, which is that you have to have 1,000 shots before you acquire a taste for it. And I drank several thousand shots of that stuff. I forced myself to like it. because it was so dirt cheap. But it would spin you out, man. Like, you don't get hangovers in the West like you do if you've been... The thing is, I'm an idiot as well, because I was drinking it like it was vodka. I had no respect for it. So the local Chinese, they will drink it in very small cups, and they'll say "gunbai" and then drink like a little shot of it. And I didn't drink it like that. I drank it like I drank vodka, which is neat from the bottle in great big swigs. And it would make me hallucinate. It would make me spin out. I lost work. I would just disappear for days in China because I love that stuff. I loved what it did to me. If you saw my video recently about Oblivion, this was the best ever for that, because it is an absolute cheat code for turning your brain off, for getting to that complete state of oblivion. There's nothing like it. And in fact, even in Berlin, I once escaped from a psych ward. Not escaped, I signed myself out. Like, I discharged myself while I was still deep in withdrawal, and found a Chinese shop, like an Asian supermarket, and bought Baijiu, because I missed it, and I knew how quickly it got me hammered. That stuff fucked me up, man. In China, that was it. How I didn't get arrested in China is beyond me. For the kind of shit that I did. For another video. The next one, third worst, that is the third one that ruined my life. Ruined my life, the third worst. Whiskey. No surprises. Whiskey... Liquor has this habit of, if it has a reputation, you will play into that reputation as a drunk. So I thought of whiskey as being a hard drinking, hard fighting, hard fucking kind of drink. So I became those things when I drank whiskey. And I was never like an angry drunk. I don't think I was ever an angry drunk, as far as I'm aware. But whiskey made me fight because I thought that was what it did. And I got in a fight. After a whiskey night, I got in a fight on a train on the way home from London. About 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got in a fight with these two guys who were smoking on the train, and the train kept stopping, and I thought it was them. No reason to get in a fight about it, but got in a fight. That's whiskey. Whiskey is... If you believe that whiskey is going to make you do those things, it will make you do those things. Of course, if you believe that about any alcoholic drink. For example, I used to think Bacardi made me a better pool player. So anytime I was in a place playing pool, I would drink Bacardi. And then believe that I was a better pool player. So that's what whiskey did for me. Whiskey made me a stupid idiot, like every other stupid whiskey drinking idiot. I wouldn't get home, or I wouldn't get to my hotel. I would be out on the streets somewhere causing trouble. So whiskey was a big one. Next one, cider. This is the number 2 on the list of alcohol that nearly ruined my life. Cider makes it to number 2 because it was the first ever drink that I bought for myself. So the first time I ever got drunk, I was given it. But cider was the one that I went and I exchanged my little £1.50 for after working in the bakery. That was my little Saturday job when I was about 14 or 15. Get paid like 15 quid in a little brown packet. And I would go off to the shop and I'd buy White Lightning. A litre of White Lightning, which I think may have been banned. And the reason why cider is responsible for ruining my life is because it was a different time, man. Like, they used to sell this drink called White Lightning, which, if I remember, please correct me in the comments, it was 11%. And you could buy it in 3 litre bottles, looked like a watermelon. And it was absolutely disgusting, foul to drink. The only way to drink it was quickly, so that you didn't have to taste it. And that just set me up for my drinking for the rest of my life. That drinking pattern of pounding a litre of cider for like 99 pence or 150 or whatever it was. Yeah, that set me up for life. So it was White Lightning and, if I remember correctly, Frosty Jacks. Does that trigger any nostalgia in any recovering British alcoholics in the audience, I wonder? All of my bad drinking habits, they all started with those cheap ciders. And finally, the one that did all of the damage, the one that I always turn to The one that... Well, it's vodka. There's no surprise there, is there? I've talked about vodka at length on this channel before. Yeah, vodka is my nemesis. It's the one thing that I'm still weak against. I don't know. I've got like 1,000 days of sobriety. And if I'm going to relapse, it's still going to be vodka. I'm at absolutely, touch wood, no risk of like picking up a beer or like a glass of wine or anything like that. If my downfall comes, it will be vodka. I'm going to describe it as the cause of a lot of problems, but really I'm sophisticated enough in sobriety to understand that I'm the cause of the problems, right? But vodka caused me a lot of problems. Every time I've been arrested, it was vodka. Let me just run through that. So in Kazakhstan, the time when I punched the cop, that was vodka. When I was robbed by the cops, that was vodka. In the UK, that was vodka. When I headbutted that cop on the way to the airport, that was vodka. The major relapses that I had in Berlin, every time I ended up in the psych ward or on a detox ward, I think that was all vodka, with a couple of days where I might have grabbed a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of gin just for variety. But that was almost entirely vodka. Getting out of jail, that was vodka. When I was on trial, that was vodka. I was drunk on trial in Kazakhstan. You have to go back in the archives for that one. So what I'm saying is that, like, apart from the occasional fight that I would get in on whiskey, it's always been vodka. There was a period where I would drink fancy vodka, Zubrovka, which is bison grass, which is like it's like a kind of creamy vodka with a big long bit of bison grass in it. And Sky vodka, I used to drink a lot of that in China. And Stolichnaya. Stolichnaya was a travel vodka. This is how well I know my vodkas, because I used to organize them. I used to buy Stolichnaya because the bottle was very long and slender, very easy to pack. So if I had a long journey, like on a plane or like a train or a coach or something, then Stolichnaya, Smirnoff obviously, but then it was just the cheapest available. And that stuff, you drink enough of it for long enough, your brain starts to rot. And that's what happened to me. That's why I eventually got sober. Vodka, by far, by an orders of magnitude, was worse than everything else on the list combined, but was also the thing that eventually helped me get sober. It had to get as bad as it could possibly get before I got sober. That's my list. Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Please do leave your own suggestions and your own experiences in the comments. If you are so inclined, like and subscribe. Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/backcountrysober. Go and experiment with betterwithoutbooze.me. That is a sobriety app that is under constant evolution and development. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, good luck out there.